morning. Welcome to the launch of Citizenship Initiative. We have a very tight, a very informative program. Oh, I'm sorry, but they do have to use the podium for the news. Yeah, we have a very tight and very informative program. I have the honor of chairing it, and let me first introduce, with pleasure, we have a general body that has informed the general policy of this initiative. There's one person who has been the key executor of all our plans, particularly over the past few months. I'd like to introduce you, Mr. Shaz Ali, one of the founding members of the Citizenship Initiative, who will be giving our opening remarks. Shaz?
Good evening, citizens. My name is Shaz Ali. I'm a businessman, a tech nerd, a husband, a father, and it is my privilege tonight to welcome you all and thank you for coming to the launch of this movement, the Citizenship Initiative. Tonight we are going to present you a roadmap for the future, one premised on credible governance and the involvement of citizens in holding political leadership accountable. Our country's rich history is one mixed with colonial life and post-independence growing pains, and like any other nation on earth, we have enjoyed the share of good times and persevered through more challenging ones. Guyana is the land that gave the world Eddie Grant, Rowan Kanai, and the late great poet Martin Carter. We are known for our beautiful interior regions, our legendary Kaichor Falls, and some of the hottest pepper sauce you can find anywhere in the world. Many have come to these shores, and few have ever failed to fall in love with our land. That being said, we are also known for our struggles and growing pains. On the 26th of May 1966, our country gained independence from Great Britain, and were finally allowed to manage our own affairs. There were many patriots from all walks of life who fought and struggled for our independence, and we are grateful for the efforts, as it has given us the right to have the identity we all share today. When one struggle ends, there is space for another to begin, and thus our country history continue to write itself, and not always in a pleasant language. We have been marred by ethnic divisions, limited opportunities for holistic economic development, and questionable leadership since then. Granted, no leader is perfect, and no one government is expected to solve all of the problems their countries faced. But at the very least, leaders are expected to tackle the problems they inherited and make them better, rather than dragging them out and sometimes even making them worse. As a nation, we have put the reins in the hands of two major groups who have shared power for 53 plus years, but yet we are still faced with many of the old struggles. This is not to say that there have not been attempts to heal the divide, to break the cycle of adversarial politics. 20 years ago, after a period of intense post-electoral violence, the leaders of the two perpetually warring factions of Guyanese politics come together. In this same space we are gathered right now, and agreed upon a peace, upon a way forward, of moving forward. That agreement was called the Herdmanston Accord. It was the Herdmanston Accord that ushered into the partial reforms, the partial culture of consensus and cooperation that led to constitutional reform, and eventually it was the possibility of the Commonwealth Accord in February 2015. Unfortunately, from May of 2015 to this day, we have not moved forward but regressed, and today, even as we stand on the cusp of tremendous financial wealth, we are suffering more than ever from a poverty of ideas in the political realm. It is due to the recognition of this poverty of ideas. Earlier this year, a group of us got together and decided that a meaningful intervention had to be made in the direction of our country. The ancient Greeks, in the fledgling days of democracy, had two main classes of residents in a city-state. There were those who took active part in public life beyond mere voting, who demanded good governance from their leaders and who held them account via a strong, vibrant state institutions. These people were called citizens. Then there were people who consciously took no active part in public life, who abdicated their responsibilities to keep current and visionless politicians in check. These people were called idiots. We decided that we were going to be citizens in the fullest sense and not allow politicians to continue to take us for idiots. Today, I'm not here to promise you miracles. I'm here to ask you to listen to our message with open minds and hearts. You will hear about our conception of similar minds from different walks of life with various backgrounds, united to take this initiative. We are ready to step up and lead our country towards a national prosperity. We have a writer, a computer guy, an accountant, a teacher, a businessman, and a youth activist. We have brothers and sisters who bring tidings and support from the diaspora. And we have a brother and friend from Trinidad who is fighting the good fight in his land for the same reasons. He has come to show solidarity with us, and we welcome him with open arms. Rest assured, our group is under no false notions that we have all the answers. Time and history in our country has taught us that no one has all the answers to anything, and no one group should claim the right to make decisions for a nation forever. We believe in sharing the responsibility of governance because we know it will take courage, commitment, and involvement from all sectors to really make the difference we want to see happen. We're not here to build a pedestal to any one person or group of people, but a platform for political leadership and participatory citizenship. We are not here to bash any other group or point fingers, but along the way, we will point out where our current leadership has fallen short and ask hard questions of them. Today, our speakers will use their platform to show you how we plan to work together with all the stakeholders to power Guyana forward into the modern governance and a better quality of life for all. We have done our own work and taken our time in creating a roadmap that we believe incorporates the big picture of our country, and we will share it with you and ask for your feedback and input. Ours is a living, breathing guidance framework, and we will listen to your ideas and make it better as we go along. Our country stands at the cusp of major economic transitions. The Citizenship Initiative intends to ensure we have a healthy framework of governance in place to address, monitor, and manage all our affairs. We believe that at this moment of our history, it is imperative that we break the cycle of ethnic politics and start on governing issues. The world around us continues to evolve and change, and we must catch up and keep pace in order to make positive impact within the global community of nations. We want to ensure we remain engaged with our strategic nation allies and forge new ties that will be mutually beneficial for all involved. Dear friends, I stand before you here today a little nervous, or a lot nervous, but plenty hopeful and motivated for our country. It is for this reason I am happy to welcome you all to our official launch and encourage you to listen and engage and find your own spark to be a citizen. Thank you.
Thank you, Shaz. I want to say, if he's watching right now, a special shout out to one of our founding members, Nkosi Bruce, who's in the hospital, who couldn't make it here today, but I'm pretty sure he's watching us. American President John F. Kennedy said that if only poets knew more politics and politicians knew more poetry, the world would be a much better place than it is. We are going to have some poetry tonight by a very talented young poet who was one of the 3 brilliant people that represented Guyana at Carrie Festa last August. I introduce you to Mr. Darrell Goodchild.
You're not prepared. You over there with no pencils or sharpening notebooks, you are not prepared to take this, the test of life. So you have failed. Sorry. No doors. You failed. And so we sink into the cave that society calls the invisible poor. Even with us, a gaping hole in the streets, many streets, a prison in the heart of town, Georgetown, we, the invisible poor. Never mind if we stand right here on the same foundations that our teachers built. We just learned different lessons. Maybe we learned the ones that matter. Like the lesson from coffee, you learn to watch your back, and we learn to trust more people than simply one. From fireman, you learn to get bigger guns, and we learn to teach our children to play with other toys. Because it seems like you only see the poor that steals, or terrorizes and kills. And it makes us think what we have to do to feel heard, to be seen. But we, the invisible poor, have replaced a trigger with a pen and paper because only idiots simply know how to code. We are not and will not raise idiots. Never mind, they seem to pop out of nowhere in your white picket fence neighborhoods, and they kill ours too. You know? And from Jonestown, you say religion is a scam. And we pray to God that He sets your record straight and teaches you the love He and the Christ had instead of hate. That love which is the only thing we, the poor, have and live it, because in God's kingdom we are all His little children. And the Father, He feeds us hope. So we have learned different lessons from our time together, but yes sir, I have failed. And I wonder if ever you thought of us, invisible poor, living in a cave as a gold mine, full of potential and in need of discovery, and rich in ways that you have lacked all your life. You may wonder how it is that we live without the canaries that you need to guide you in our streets. The canary that makes sure you don't know what real hunger is. The canary that means you live not just under a roof, but a pretty roof inside of painted walls. The canary that gets you a car when you turn 18, that fragile, fleeting, caged bird. What if it's stolen? What if it flies away? What if your caged little canary dies? Then you're going to learn the lesson that we teach to our newborns, and in their baby dreams we hush them to live under a ceiling to survive the acid rains of high expectations out of life. So take a deep breath, baby, because you're going to have to run and run and run all your life, and pray you find a way to the surface.
Thank you, Darren. Now, about 70 years ago, when it is that in the immediate post-war era, when it is that Caribbean people came back from fighting a war in a continent far away from removed from their experience, when they saw what existed elsewhere, outside of the narrow colonial experience that was foisted upon them, they started to develop a regional identity. And that was what sparked the independence movement. Our faiths in Guyana have always been intertwined with the faiths of our brothers and sisters in the rest of the Anglophone Caribbean and wider field. We've had a common history, common colonial experience. We have a common future, one that is in the making. What we have not had in about the past 40 years or so is a renewed sense of where our purpose lies. We've become stuck, as we are in Guyana, in quagmires of division, of political dysfunction, of stagnation. A few months ago, I follow Trinidadian politics because I have friends in Trinidad. And I saw a story about a young man who decided that he was tired of the division and dysfunction. And I was impressed, very impressed by what he said. So I reached out to him online, and we began a conversation. And when I was in Trinidad in August for Carifesta, we met, and it convinced me that our mutual problems are the same, our mutual challenges are the same, and our mutual solutions, therefore, are the same. I invited him to come over and be a guest speaker at our launch. and he thankfully agreed. I give you Nikolai Jean-Paul Edwards, founder and now interim political leader, and I suspect it's going to be more than interim political leader in the future, of the Progressive Party of Trinidad, newly formed. Some people in the back, we have 3 seats in front and some other seats. Please come forward.
A pleasant good evening to the members of the Citizenship Initiative, specially invited guests, curious citizens of Guyana, to the members of the media, and to all who are looking on through electronic means. Now, I want to start off by saying how much I am humbled and I appreciate the offer that was extended to me to come and be a part of this historical moment here in Guyana. And just to the persons, because I would have read some comments in the lead up to today, and I want to say 2 things in particular. One, I am not here to give a lecture to the people of Guyana. I am rather here to share a story, my story, and that of the Progressive Party. And 2, I am not here to tell the people of Guyana how to organize their affairs. I am not versed in that area. This is my first time actually coming to Guyana, so it's a very important moment for me to interact with fellow Caribbean people and to understand some of the challenges being faced here in Guyana and to see how we as a Caribbean, as had been articulated, could move together in one voice, one movement. I am here to share with you the experiences that I hope you would consider in supporting this initiative, the Citizenship Initiative. So my story starts off in 2009. Having been given the opportunity to attend the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting in Trinidad and Tobago, specifically the Commonwealth Youth Forum. That was the first time I ever had an opportunity to interact with young people from all over the Commonwealth, share with them ideas, listen to stories, and to understand more than anything that there were other young people who wanted change around the world, and who not only just wanted change, but who were willing to get up, stand up, and be counted. And it was in that moment that I was inspired, and I believed that I had an opportunity to contribute to my country, to my region, and to the world at large. That was in 2009. In 2011, I had the opportunity to enroll at the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine campus. It was there I became more, or rather, I understood and saw myself more in the context of being a Caribbean man. Because to see and to appreciate the blending of accents and cultural experiences, the things that make us Caribbean, something that too often we take for granted, I saw myself as a Caribbean man. Over the past 10 years, I've been working in civil society in Trinidad and Tobago, advocating primarily for youth in my country. It has led me to serve on the Commonwealth Youth Council, which represents 1.2 billion young people. I served in the capacity of Vice Chairperson, Policy, Advocacy, and Projects. But that was only the midpoint in terms of my journey, because I recognize that I could have been an effective leader. I had a voice, and I needed to use that voice to represent something that was much bigger than myself. And so I started to consider politics. But as many times we feel, politics may be probably just for old people. Politics only for corrupt people. Politics are only for persons who want to benefit themselves and themselves alone. That's usually the thought that goes along with politics. Yes. But I had a different viewpoint. I saw politics as being a proper medium to offer real change, progress in my country. In 2017, I remember one morning getting a phone call very early, and I answered. And on the other end of that phone call was President Anthony Carmona, then President of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Well, I don't think I need to tell you how I flew out of my bed and gulped any kind of coal that or mucus was to the back of my throat to make him understand that I was awake and attentive. And he said to me, Nikolai, I've seen the work that you've been doing, and I think that you're onto something. When I thought that no one was looking on, when I thought no one was paying attention to the things that I was doing and to the things that I was saying, there you had the person who occupied the highest office in Trinidad and Tobago listening. And he said to me, there is an opportunity that has arisen in the Senate, because as you may or may not know, in Trinidad and Tobago we have a bicameral system. So we have the lower house and the upper house, the lower house being the House of Representatives and the upper house being the Senate. And in the Senate you have government senators, opposition senators, and independent senators. Independent senators are appointed by the president in his or her discretion. And when a senator is either out of the country or sick, there is an opportunity to replace that senator with a temporary senator. And so one of the independent senators was going abroad, and the president there asked me if I would be willing to take up the opportunity to sit as a temporary independent senator at the age of 25. Because in Trinidad and Tobago, in order to be a senator, you have to be 25 and over. And when he said that, I felt in that moment that everything that I was working toward was finally coming to pass. And I remember being sworn in as an independent senator, and the first piece of legislation that I had the honor of contributing to and voting on had to do with ending child marriages in Trinidad and Tobago. Many persons were not aware that prior to 2017, in my country, it was totally acceptable for children to be married off to big hardback men and women. That was a reality. And because I had been operating in that civil society space for as long as I had been, and understanding some of the challenges being faced by young people, it made the opportunity that I got that much sweeter. And during the course of 2017, I continued to occupy a seat in the Senate on and off, and debated many pieces of legislation, things dealing with the criminal justice system, things doing or dealing with financial matters, and so on. And it really inspired me that this was where I needed to be. Because I know many times people say, how do you know when you have come across your calling? How do you know when you have been called to something higher, something beyond yourself? I just knew it in my bones that this is what I was meant to do. And then in 2018, January 2018, I was also called by the president to serve on the procurement board of Trinidad and Tobago, the first of its kind, and also being the youngest member of that board. Over the past couple of years, I've had many experiences that I think prepared me to take the bold step that I took, because I recognize that the two political entities, the major political entities in Trinidad and Tobago, was not as responsive as it needed to be to the needs of the citizens of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. And I had an option, I had a choice. I could have simply been another person who sits on the sidelines and complains and quarrels and points fingers and does absolutely nothing about it. I could have been another person who says, you know what, I'm just not going to vote, and somehow magically expect that to make a difference in the country. I could have been just another person who keeps his head low, minds his business, goes to work every day, does what he needs to do to survive, and don't care about anyone else, because it's simply about how can I get by. But I also had another option: stand up and be counted. And I knew that I was called to something bigger. And so in 2017, I decided to register, still not sure, but decided to register the symbol of the Progressive Party with the Elections and Boundaries Commission. And I gave myself enough time to question whether or not this was the right decision. So 2 years had passed. And in those 2 years, I was working on the constitution of the Progressive Party, keeping this very quiet, only my family and close friends knowing about what I was doing. And in 2019, this year, I decided that it was time to take this thing live. And on the 16th of June 2019, I launched the Progressive Party. Of course, amidst criticisms and suspicions and people saying that doomed to fail because we live in a two-party system. But despite all of that, I understood that there was a growing middle. People who were simply fed up with the way that things were going and they wanted an option. And I decided to create that platform, much like what is being done here tonight. And I am expecting citizens to see this as an option for them. It's not simply about what does Nikolai have to say on the issues or what can Nikolai actually do. But it should be about how can I use this platform that Nikolai has created to advance a vision for my country. Much the same way that you all should be seeing the Citizenship Initiative. It is not simply about these individuals. It is about the fact that they have created a platform and are now looking to the citizens of Guyana to step forward and to be a part of it. So, the same way that I don't necessarily want persons to simply criticize the Progressive Party, but rather step forward and help build this, because it should be reflective of the citizens of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. It's the same way I want to lend this encouragement to the Citizenship Initiative, where hopefully the citizens of Guyana who have decided in years gone by not to vote or not to support any party or any politician that comes around would decide to step forward and lend their support to something. And support does not only mean finances. Many a times we feel as though, well, I don't have money to contribute to that, and you must have a big businessman backing you and all of these things. By simply deciding one day to pass out flyers, by simply deciding one day to tell a co-worker about this new party that you heard, by simply deciding, because I'm a tradesman or a small business owner, I have something to contribute, whether it be a case of water or whether it be the option to print 20 jerseys or to give $100 or in this case $1,000. Those small things add up. And this has to genuinely be a citizenship initiative. So with the Progressive Party, the intention is to contest all 41 seats in the 2020 general election in Trinidad and Tobago. And some people may be saying, well, how are you going to fund that and how are you going to organize and so forth? Well, the fact is that we live in 2019, where it's that much easier to get a message out, thanks to social media, thanks to networking. So for one, the kind of money that would have been spent on an election, let's say 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, is not the same kind of money that would be needed for an election campaign in 2020. We are all connected and we need to leverage on that. So I am going full steam ahead with my team to contest the 2020 general elections. And our success will be determined by the people of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. If that means getting just enough seats to form the opposition, or even just one seat in Parliament, that would be the start of something. And that's how we need to see it. Trinidad and Tobago, much like Guyana, has so much potential. And we need to start to see the potential of our countries being realized. We cannot sit and expect our matters to be dealt with by persons who are ill-suited to fit in the positions for which they occupy. We need to start to look among ourselves and identify individuals who we know may make a better Minister of Finance, or a better minister who has responsibility for social issues or national security. Why are we spending money on educating ourselves and taking up positions in society if not for a higher purpose, a higher calling? We need to trust ourselves and our abilities. Because the individuals who currently occupy spaces in parliaments across the Caribbean, they have the confidence in themselves. And the reason why a political party may lose an election is not necessarily only because the party for which it is opposing is stronger, it's because the individuals who surround the party that lost did not have the tenacity, the wherewithal, the confidence in themselves to push forward. Because I'll state it like this. If you go to a line of businesses, a line of restaurants, or a stall, someone selling at the side of the road, the first one that you would consider going to would probably be the one that has the most amount of people at its doorstep. Not so? Because you feel as though everyone is shopping there, so that might be the best option. If we all go with that mindset and no one ventures to try something different, we would be losing out on a huge opportunity. Because if one person walks over and tries something different, and then 2 persons, and then 3 persons, and we start to spread word among ourselves that this is a good product, then you would see how the tables will turn. And that's what we need. I think it is laudable that you all have decided to come out here today. You are the ones who are going to take this citizenship initiative forward. You are the individuals who now have to go back and speak to your family and speak to your friends and say, let's give this a try. Because you have to ask yourself the question, how much more can we take before we break? So I want to extend the best of wishes to the Citizenship Initiative. I think that as we move across the Caribbean, the appetite for new political change, for something different, will be whet. Because I had recently only been invited to both Antigua and Barbuda and to St. Lucia to speak at trade union events being held for youth. I've met with prime ministers and presidents across this globe. I have been highly active on the youth front, and I think that it is high time that I take all of those experiences and ensure that Trinidad and Tobago benefits from it. Much the same way that these individuals, they have excelled in their fields. They have decided that Guyana, for them, needs to be on a new frontier, and they have stepped forward. So I encourage you all, and I lend the support of the Progressive Party, because I think that once we all work together, pool our resources, pool our expertise, there will absolutely be nothing that will stop this new wave of exciting times that is going to hit the Caribbean from coming on board. So I'm humbled for the opportunity, and I know that we will do what we set out to do. Even if it does not happen tomorrow, or the day after, or the day after that, we have to keep on keeping on. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I had no idea what you were going to say when you came, and it was brilliant. It's exactly the sort of thing that when I was recently in Trinidad in August. I spent a night, probably went up to like 3 o'clock in the morning, by a good friend of mine, Afro Raymond, who has been taking accountability to governments, successive governments in Trinidad. And there's about 4 or 5 of us. And the people that were involved were people, I was the youngest by about 20 years. But they were telling me about a particular wave of Caribbeanness that has passed us by. And we're making the case that now is the time for that wave to sweep the region. And I saw a glimpse of it when we engaged in Trinidad, but I see the full power of it now. So you have our full support. And if, when you're ready to launch off, we will come and render tangible support to you going forward. Now, one of the things that we faced, and young people in general in Guyana face, when it is that they decide to step forward and show themselves, is that there's this thing that, and it annoys me, and I keep pointing it out, There's a statement that says you have to creep before you walk. I'm 39. My son will be 16 next month. In 2 years, if he's buttless, unlike his father, I could be a grandfather. The people who founded the independence movement in Guyana did so in their 20s and 30s. People my age, and I'll address my friends in the existing political parties who are my age and older, who are still being treated as if they're babies. And the usual thing is, you don't have ideas, you don't have plans. And that may be true for people within existing parties because they're not allowed to have ideas and to have plans. Now, we are ready to meet that challenge. In that regard, what we want to do is turn this session into sort of a mini town hall. I'm going to explain our broad pillars for development. There. And I'll give a bit of background, and my fellow members will expand on a couple of areas. So, when we finish with that, we will invite questions from both the audience and the press. And after that, we'll have our feature address. So, press, I gotta move. You know what? Let me know. Sorry. No, I will stay and use technology to. Now, the first aspect of our plan has to do with what we call participatory citizenship, enhanced governance, and public accountability. I think this speaks for itself. We intend to have, for example, from the get-go, an uncompromising attitude, first of all, to constitutional reform. Our constitution is flawed, and if we ever needed any sort of proof of that the past year has been proof enough and more. If it is, or when it is, that we enter Parliament, we will insist that the Standing Committee on Constitutional Reform does its job, and not like, as has happened over the past year, meet 4 times in 4 years. That's not good enough. We look at justice reform, modernization of government services. So when it is that you go and are expected to have a process last 6 minutes, it lasts 6 hours. That is a recipe for the corruption that infects the government system today. National security reform has to be a key component of governance reform. We intend to heavily introduce the concept of digital governance and cyber sovereignty. And during the question and answer period, feel free to ask me on precisely how we're going to do that. Now, one particular thing that we're going to focus on, and we intend to push this in the first year without compromise, is the decriminalization of marijuana as a moral, ethical, and just a plain good sense thing to do. We cannot keep criminalizing primarily poor people. Ministers, I know, smoke weed. The children smoke weed and pop pills. I don't know why is it that a young person in Herdmanston has to go to jail for something that is an open secret, an open practice among people who are privileged and who are protected in the society. That is without compromise. There's no half-assed promises that we've had in the past couple of years, and no kicking the can down the road. It has to be uncompromisable aspect of our plan. Now, the next pillar is economic security, diversification, and growth. And my good friend Alfonso de Armas, again, one of our hardcore members from the beginning, will do an extensive plan on this. I won't get too much into that. Then we're going to look at infrastructure for the future. Again, I won't get too much into that because that is Yannick's area. What I will say is one of the things that we'd like to do is ensure that there's resilience, technological, climate, and we have a new infrastructure we propose, and Yannick has a brilliant presentation on that. Education and human resource development, that is on our agenda. We have a specialist, somebody who's passionate about that, and that person happens to be our keynote speaker. Social cohesion, security and equity. That includes national heritage and cultural policy. I spent the past 3 days finally having one phase of consultations on national cultural policy, and I intended to continue for the rest of my term in my current position, which is a couple of months. We want to mainstream marginal and new communities. We're going to look at targeted cash transfers, and then we're going to look at the security, the physical infrastructure. Then finally, we're going to look at international leadership. We're going to start with encouraging this new wave that we see as nascent in the Caribbean and attach it to a larger global picture. We believe that Guyana has, and the rest of the Caribbean has lessons for managing diversity that the world sorely needs right now. We're going to do it by regional cooperation, economic and otherwise, and of course, leveraging our new economic power. So that's in summary. That said, I'd like to call Mr. De Armas to explain his plan to us.
Can I move?
Yeah, please.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Alfonso de Armas, and this isn't so much a plan as it is signals of intent, things that we find are important, are pressing issues when it comes to our economic security, diversification, and growth. So for too long, our politicians have lured us with promises of jobs. Oh, we'll give you 20,000 jobs, says one. Another one says, oh, we'll give you 50,000 jobs. And we're prisoners to their promises. Our focus isn't so much on job creation as it is wealth creation, and there's a big difference. There's a big difference between jobs that pay $60,000 a month or true wealth, working for yourself. So what we find is that wealth empowers individuals to grow and thrive, and they strengthen communities. Wealth is the only way, wealth is the opposite of poverty. And by unleashing individuals and the entrepreneurial spirit, I think we'll go a long way towards wealth creation instead of just mediocre job creation. So we intend to focus on a few areas. Key amongst them, tax reform, the competitiveness of the financial sector, actually liberalize the ICT sector. It's been 4 years since we've been promised the liberalization of the ICT sector, and so far GT&T has only succeeded in strengthening its monopoly. That has led to higher rates and pretty mediocre customer service. A national electronic payment system. I mean, it's 2019. Guyana is the only place. It's one of the few places that are in the Caribbean where electronic payments aren't available. And if you think about it, electronic payments really have the ability to unleash the individual entrepreneur. Imagine the craftsman, so talented on Main Street, being able to accept payments for their work right then and there. Property rights. Property rights. Ooh, imagine property rights and regulation. I'll focus on each of these briefly for a bit. Yeah, so the focus again is not on ideology or on nice platitudes, saying nice things, but our focus is a data-driven, evidence-based approach to tax reform. Yeah, in other words, use what works. There's no need to reinvent the wheel, use what works. So for example, we might use tax credits to the private sector as an incentive for employers to focus on youth. I know that when I was a student abroad, the government of Ontario used a system like this quite successfully to incentivize employers, the private sector, to hire students. I benefited from it, and it was a magnificent experience. We can also use tax credits for qualifying post-secondary institutions who offer training and capacity to farmer sugar workers, for example. Right, so harnessing the power of tax reform to focus on youth, the farmer sugar workers, etc. These are things that I haven't seen really explored in our tax policy. Overall data suggests that lower income and corporate taxes increase economic competitiveness and it increases economic output. And these are all good things for us, for the consumer, for firms, for government. Financial sector competitiveness. I mean, we just saw, we were scared by Scotiabank's, or we were taken aback by Scotiabank's threat, or not threat, their intention to leave the sector. Even government was caught aback. Because the impact of that is less competitiveness in the sector. And we all know how difficult it is for individuals, for people like you and me, to transform an idea into a business, because it's difficult to get a loan from a bank. The requirements are oftentimes way too onerous for the individuals like you and me to provide to banks. So what we find is that lack of competition in the financial sector stifles entrepreneurship and innovation. Issuing more banking licenses, for example, will likely increase the competitiveness of this sector and enhance the quality and affordability of financial services. When banks have to compete for your business, interest rates might be lower, quality of their services might be lower, might be better. You won't find yourself standing hours in line at Republic Bank or Scotiabank or any bank. Have we thought about the lost hours, time that we've spent standing in lines at GRA, in banks, all over the place? Standing in line has become a pastime, right? It's something that electronic payments and modernizing our financial architecture will definitely allow us. Right, so modernizing our financial architecture will fast track electronic payment legislation and technology. I think they passed the bill a few years ago, but I don't know what has become of it. Definitely hasn't changed anything here. According to the World Bank, a modernized payment system could save Guyana about $6.5 billion. Again, these savings could be better spent in youth development and diversifying the economy. Property rights. I mean, I rant to my friends and on Facebook all the time about the lack of property rights in Guyana. The creative industry in Guyana has huge untapped potential for wealth creation. How many Rihannas and Toni Morrisons and Jay-Z's live in communities like All Boys Town or East Bank? Yeah, right. But there's no incentive for them to produce good work because they won't be paid for it. There really is no incentive. And the excuses that we hear are really not good enough. Oh, things are going to become more expensive. Well, other people are going to find a way to create wealth for themselves. Artists, musicians. Imagine musicians actually being paid for their work here without hearing their music pirated on the radio or on push cards. Sectors that rely on intellectual property rights represent a significant part of developing economies in terms of GDP, employment, tax revenues, and strategic importance. But sadly, this has really been ignored by our politicians. They've just paid lip service to it. Both individuals and companies will benefit from intellectual property rights in diverse ways to help them develop, trade in, and secure income from their innovative products and services. And we all know how creative Guyana is. And finally, just a small note on regulation. We find that excessive regulation is especially burdensome for small businesses. It's a significant barrier to entry into the market. It's excessive regulation. How many licenses you gotta go stand in line here at GRA, then go somewhere else and get letters? It's crazy. There's too much regulation. Now, excessive regulation is especially burdensome for small businesses. The cost per employee of complying with regulations is usually a lot higher for small firms than it is for firms with more than 100 employees, for example. So who faces the brunt of the regulations? It is people like you and me. People like you and me who want to start our own small business. We're the ones. We can't afford to have runners standing in line for us. And yeah, so much time is wasted. Burdensome regulations are easier for larger firms to shoulder and drive small firms out of business or prevent them from entering in the first place. And again, that just leads to lack of competitiveness in the market. So yeah, that's our intent. I didn't touch on oil and gas because we feel that is a big topic, and we will dedicate a lot more time to that. And our approach is going to be entirely data-driven and evidence-based. No pie-in-the-sky promises about things that we know or our politicians know are not attainable. Right? Data-driven, evidence-based. Thank you, guys.
All right, so citizenship is the highest office in the land. Ralph Gonzalez, the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The office that we all seek as politicians to gain is an abstract one, in my opinion, because the office belongs to the citizens and not to us. We simply go to represent. Now, TCI has a vision for Guyana and for Guyana tomorrow. And that vision is more than just simply a vision, but it's a destination. And before you can arrive somewhere, or before you can do something, you have to visualize it and then plot your way towards it. And I'm going to be talking about infrastructure for the future and beyond infrastructure for the future. Beyond infrastructure for the future, there are some things that we can have the biggest buildings, the best cars, the smoothest roads, but if we do not have human capital development, all that will be a waste. So before I go into the presentation on infrastructure, I think it's critical for us to conduct a skills mapping exercise throughout the country where we can understand what skills we currently possess, all of our citizens, what skills we don't have, and look at the gap between those two and spend money to fill that gap. Some skills that we will need include project management, operations management, investment management, data analysis, data science skills, executive leadership, and many, many more. In 2030, 2 election cycles from now, the world population will increase by over 1 billion people. The majority of them will live in cities and metropolitan areas. We will have an upsurge of new metropolitan areas. And with this increase, efficiency will become an issue. Efficiency in how we build buildings, efficiency in our transportation networks. We already have, I was going to use we have OMTV. We already have a horrible transportation system here in Guyana. We spend hours sitting in traffic. So efficiency will be one of the key things that we need to look at. Our Honorable President a few days ago, speaking about post-oil Guyana, mentioned agro-processing. And I don't even think he should have mentioned agro-processing. Post-oil Guyana is artificial intelligence, smart technologies, clean technologies, big data, data management and processing, augmented reality, virtual reality, blockchain. These things are not separate from Guyana.
All the first world countries are already doing their work in this. Why can't we start? Why can't we prepare our youths to take up these positions and take up this training? The fifth industrial revolution is fast approaching, and we need to leap forward. As our human capital develops, so will our infrastructure. And infrastructure is key for economic growth. The movement of goods and services are completely dependent on infrastructure within this country. And TCI has a robust plan for this. We have a unique opportunity with oil and gas to properly spend the money to develop the country so that when the oil and gas is finished, we can still gain money, not only in traditional ways, but new futuristic ways. The video will be available on our Facebook page for you to better look at and listen. And once you listen, I need you to listen and pay attention to everything that is in that video. Thank you.
The idea that we have in terms of developing and fleshing out this roadmap, clearly a lot of thought has gone into our 6 pillars. You had a fraction of what we intend to do tonight. We intend to take this roadmap across the country and have citizen inputs. We don't, as much work as we put into it, we don't think it's perfect. We think proper public policy has to be built upon consultation with the citizens that policy will affect. So, as part of that process, we want to invite you tonight to be part of a town hall type session in which you, having listened to us, having seen what some of the plans are, to question us about what you've seen and if it is that, without going too off kilter, any other general plans that we might have. So, let me open the floor. Who's first?
Good evening. I have 2 concerns. One with infrastructure. I haven't heard anything mentioned of global warming, climate change. And I'm assuming somebody said it was a New Georgetown. So I'm thinking that this is a New Georgetown in the interior. Because by 2030, we are basically done with this. And I think that the biggest threat to Guyana, and I think that's what we probably need to focus on, is the effects of climate change in the present infrastructure that we have. And so, are you taking into consideration New Georgetown as in having a new capital? And the second question is, you spoke about something about social cohesion, and I want to probably take it in consideration with the psychosocial brokenness of our society. And what do you go forward? How do you go forward with that? And finally, the plan sounds like you'll become the next government. But in reality, you may have 2 seats, 3 seats. And what are your primary plans in going forward in collaborating or being in strategic partnership with one of the bigger parties in supporting them in support of one of their agendas?
I'll answer the last 2 questions, and then I can take the first one. With regard to our plans with collaboration, etc. Now, we're going to take all politics that currently exists, presumes that the executive has the sole authority for presentation of ideas and creation of innovation. That's one of the things that we are fighting against. Nothing prevented us, as citizens, from coming up with these plans. We intend to push them forward, we intend to push the ideas into the public domain, and we intend to challenge whoever is the executive, whether it's us or whether it's somebody else, to either implement them or not implement them. And if they choose not to implement them, then if it is a great parliament, they have to pass a budget. With regard to social cohesion, that is the key component of what has been pushed. It was, while it envisions an extension of the very current administration, but broadening and deepening of it. That is why it's going to pass 3 years looking over one phase, which is my official duty, consultations on national public policy, and when it comes to social cohesion, we'll get expanded. Now you mentioned the whole aspect of the psychosocial element of it, the structure of families, etc. Our culture, the subcultures, are complex things. Whenever we move forward, we intend to ensure that every aspect of what was wrong with us, like all these sort of generationally transmitted neuroses that affect us, very different. They address both from a cultural aspect as well as a public health, mental health aspect. So we intend to look it up. So if this satisfies you, the question. Now,
thank you, Will. Climate change is definitely an issue for us. Obviously, the video, everything that was portrayed in the video shows sustainability. It shows alternate power energy sources. So the video has covered that without explicitly saying climate change. Just because saying climate change has become so taboo now. And once we know that this should be the new way of life, so that we don't need to say climate change. Our way of life should just always be clean. But we understand climate change exists. That's why the city portrayed in the video has been laid out in the way it's been laid out. And there's no pitch for a new Georgetown. Georgetown is Georgetown. We're in Georgetown. Even if a capital city is moved, Georgetown will be Georgetown.
Let's, for everybody else in the future, let's think of the most important question to ask you, just so we can spread the room a bit, right? So one question per person.
Thank you. So the most important question I have is concerning Amerindians. So I come from Escravo. I came specifically for this function. I live in an Amerindian community, and I work in Amerindian communities around Guyana. So we have in Guyana the Amerindian land titling issue going on in Region 7, Region 9, Region 2 respectively. What are your plans in concern with the development of Amerindian communities and the Amerindian land titling project in relation to the strengthening of our borders as well?
No, incidentally, I think I have my band, one of the most recent publications on land information. And this is something I'm currently studying. Because frankly, I don't know enough about it. But the very basic principle that we have, and because I work in culture, and culture has a nexus between citizenship and citizens' rights. Like very broad, there's a two-point thing that we need to look at the indigenous communities, has to do with land issue, and also cultural rights issue, specifically the issue of language. One of the things that I did push forward very aggressively is the issue of how it is that indigenous languages are developed, preserved, and sustained and mainstreamed, because the vision that a government ministry is going in as a government land information, one of the key aspects of public policy in the area has to do with the issue of free, prior, and informed consent. You have to go in, tell the people, this is what we intend to do, this is how we intend to expand or restrict your land rights. And when they go in, they speak in English. And people don't understand properly. Not because they're stupid, but because English is not their first language. But the average Amerindian person in Guyana is bilingual, but you can't say the average coastlander. So, as a key part of cultural rights and the very practice of government is to go in, be able to put in this public policy in your community, affects your community, take that back, and then craft proper public policy. We intend to, and thank you for coming. This gentleman is one of the first person to contact our Facebook page and took us to task with some things that we felt that we didn't do right. And when we said, well, this is the actual situation, we decided to come. So, Lake Kapui, that's where you're from. We intend to visit you there and have you introduce us to the people so we can get a direct first-hand experience of what the concerns are, from land titling to language, education to social ills that affect the indigenous communities, and then we will use that information to craft our general policy. Last one.
Good night, everyone. Well, let me just say thanks to Rihanna and his team for inviting myself and all of us by extension. I know you said one question, so I'll try to merge two into one.
I know you're alive.
A couple of things. One, I'm trying to get clear in my mind what is the intention of the group. I've been hearing remarks by representatives of the group indicating that the group intends to advocate for change in certain areas, and I would imagine it's listed in the 6 pillars that you've identified. But then I also heard, and you just mentioned it throughout, for example, whether or not we're in the executive. So to me that indicates political aspirations or a willingness to correlate with a particular political party to pursue your change. I may be wrong, I'm not sure. And I think, as you know, Guyanese have an issue with trust, especially when it comes to our politicians. Most of us would support a political party because we feel it represents, it identifies with our heritage. So I want to, in that context, I'm asking this question. The question: how are we to be assured that this initiative is not a proxy for a political party, or will be evolved into a proxy for a party or interest of a particular party, right? And the second question related to that: who are the financiers?
Let me answer the second question first. We are the financials. I have, for example, alright, yeah. First of all, we're the financiers. We have no external financing. I have a very understanding landlady. When comes, Mom, I'm doing this thing, we'll have to rent them a deal. This thing, and this is very critical. I'm glad this question was asked. There's no shadow money here. Going forward, there will be no shadow money. We will count every single cent. One of the key things that we'll be pushing as a political entity, a political party, which answers the other question, is campaign finance reform. This is something that we will stick to, and we will challenge the other players to stick to. Nobody will go in the pocket, and somebody collecting, put some in their pocket, and then put some in theirs. That makes inefficient campaigning, and then it transforms into the issue of governance, because the person who paid you pay the party, first of all, the party owns them. But when you put it in your pocket, the person also owns you. So your decisions are not led by public interest, they're led by personal gain. We will intend to put it into. So again, this thing has been expensive, but we know it's stronger, trust me. But there is no financing. But that said, from this point on, we're open to the financing. We'll be open, very open. So, I answered the questions. All our goal is to end up in Parliament. As the key platform has to do with leverage in Parliament. Now, answer the question. question of coalition. Let me say very explicitly now. Our message is that this adversarial politics, two giants, continues to be the primary hurdle for the government in Guyana. Coalition, either two, is not an option. That doesn't, we don't intend to go and say, this is adversarial and this is, we want to consume and stuff like that. Shaz addressed, but from a very practical perspective. You can't say that you have goals that you want to attain, you change the status quo and then join the status quo. It doesn't make sense. So, some other aspects of your questions with regard to, well, this is okay, people say so, will be addressed, keynote address. So, I advise you to wait for it. Don? Well, he just mentioned civil competence, so I don't want him to make the down.
I guess my question would be for Alfonso. Sorry, good idea, everyone. You talk about wealth creation, finances, tax credits, electronic payments, and all that. What has here in Guyana for a very long time is corruption. How do you plan to deal with that?
What's that?
How do you stop corruption? Because nothing else happens unless you do that. Yannick's great Georgetown doesn't happen.
Yeah, no. Corruption is the bane of progress. It's important that there be a zero tolerance policy to corruption. Not just advocating for transparency for political expediency, but actually carrying through. And where people have broken the law, then they should be made to pay for it.
But that doesn't happen again.
No, it does, because our politicians are interested in that. We are, though, because we recognize that data-driven, evidence-based, using data and evidence shows us that prosecuting corruption, not tolerating it, is one of the easiest ways to advance and to grow as a nation. Right? We intend to implement a wealth of transparency, not incentives, but initiatives. Yeah. Yeah.
But there's no wealth creation without stopping corruption, because it's endemic at so many levels.
Precisely, it needs to be rooted out.
Most nights over.
I mean, that's what I'm asking. How are you rooting it out?
Dude, that's like a 7-hour lecture.
Well, one of the first things we do, this is why if you see our first pillar has to do with governance, which addresses the issue of corruption. Now, we mentioned the issue of, one of the key aspects we're going to look at is, and Jonathan touched on it, is how it is to integrate technology into this thing. One of the key enablers of corruption is the space-based system we have. Somebody can go out without a document, they can change a figure. We intend to...
Like a hack computer system.
Yeah, but...
Much easier.
Well, we hope that cybersecurity, our cybersecurity plan is going to be robust. But we have to attempt it. So cybersecurity, but again, more than anything else, what has to happen, and I think we represent people here who are keen on this. You have to have a political will. That the key disincentive against corruption is political will. So this is why we start with
politicians will lock themselves.
But that's why we start with campaign financing issue. That is where it starts. When special interests get a through on bribing amount of money, it shadows the political movements. That is where it starts.
So you refuse money?
Yes. No, we will not refuse money. But we will refuse. No. We will refuse money, but we insist that if you give me money, it's not going to be shadows. You decide.
What question?
Yeah. You decide. If it is that you're going to give us money, yeah. And anybody, one of the things that was asked on our page, we will have every single donor. The name of it is the request anonymity, the name attached to a code. However, if you go $2 million, I'm ambitious.
Very.
But I've been in Guyanese politics, I've been witness to Guyanese politics, and I can tell you this joke one. But if it is you go above $2 million, it's 10,000 US. Anonymity is not an option. You have to agree that your name will be out there and published as being a donor above a certain statutory amount. We will campaign to be a statutory amount. And this is not something we'll compromise about. But nothing, as you rightly said, nothing that we seek to do with regard to transformation will happen if there's one. I'm going to be very, very.
I just want to move the question.
Well, hold on. Well, I will not really accept it on me. Harry. Oh, this again. Issues of presidential candidacy, etc., are secondary right now. What we are not here, as Shah said, to pedestal anybody, we're the platform citizenship. We encourage people to join up. We encourage participation. This is not about doing a platform for somebody, a pedestal for somebody's people. This is about involving people like you to join us in this decision. Right now, the presidential candidacy, and let's be realistic. Anybody, any small party in particular, that is haggling over who's going to be presidential candidate, again, it's an exercise in vanity. Realistically, we will have the head of a list. We will ensure that person fits the criteria of integrity, of accountability, and of intelligence that we set with regard to who we want in government. And that person, realistically, will lead our team in parliament. Realistically. So, the questions of presidential candidacy, that is at best a legal issue in terms of who will head the list or parliamentary list going into the elections as a legal prerequisite. Presidential candidacy, this is the last thing on our mind right now. We want a competent list built from a competent platform. This we look at. All right. Two more questions. Anything else we have to say, because we want to get to everything. So, sorry. General, you taking one question?
Okay, you guys mentioned about governance reform. Can you, unless I've missed it, I haven't heard anything about constitutional reform, which is one of the main pillars of, one of the main problems that causes all of this problem in the first place.
Keep it short, because you spoke about it. Keep it brief.
I spoke about it, this one. We intend, again, to institute a parliamentary, legislative agenda that has constitutional reform as the first pillar. And even we'll go even beyond that. We will ensure that going into it, that our proposal speaks to constitutional creativity as a prelude to constitutional reform. One good example of that is issue shared governance. Currently, the Constitution says that the executive president can select his cabinet, his government, from a list. We list from anybody who's on the list. That doesn't restrict it to his list or her list. If it is that I get the presidency and Annette is the party against me, and her list makes the case in election against votes, I can select Annette. Nothing prevents me from selecting Annette. Yeah, she made my president. He said probably select her as president, resign, and then. But the point is this. Constitutional reform is on our agenda, and we have a very complex and still evolving treatment of it going forward. So it's only this number one on our agenda for governance. Virginia?
Yes. Just repose my question, actually.
Very short question.
Very short. Have you considered that the future has any possibility you could very well succeed? So the first question is, you're not going to coordinate with the major parties, but would you consider coalition with other forces, including forces that are present at the moment? And the second question is,
One short question.
you have the, because the first candidate is usually the head of the list. Are you considering that the head of the list is somebody other than the political candidates, so the power's concentration will not be there? Accusing to manage this,
The short answer to the first question, we're open to any smaller entity that shares our strategy, shares our commitments, or our plan. We're open to strategic. It's good sense. I like the idea that you have, and yeah, this is certainly something we'll think, because we want to ensure that we, that always have issues. So that is actually on the agenda. Now, that is just a small example of how we intend to take our process and our plans to the wider community in the next couple of months. The next few months, this is not about campaigning. This is about engaging citizens in a very direct way of shaping public policy that we intend to say that we're going to take this and this is going to affect in the future. How you involved in shaping it. When you go in and 50,000 jobs or this, doesn't make sense. It's insulting to the electorate that you were hoping to gain your votes, to give you the privilege of giving government. That's not what I think. That said, I want to point out something that nobody else has asked us, and that has to do with gender. You had 4 men talking here, and not a single person, including the fact not a single woman asked the question. Gender is a very important thing to our plan going forward, and this here was extremely deliberate, because what we did is save the best for last. That best is, of course, I'm going to use X, but let me give you some background, which is going to embarrass her slightly. Now, about a little 20 years ago, I went to Herdmanston College. That was very bright, and I was now getting into the literary arts field, so I thought it was a hot shit, and I just said shit.
Every now and then you use it.
Yeah. I thought it was the hot shit in literature. Then we had this summer school at UG where all the top high schools got together, and we had this extremely, extremely difficult literature teacher. But I didn't know at the time because I was preached in class and I thought I was hot shit. And then we got 8 marks. And everybody, every single person failed in the class, except for this one annoying person. One annoying person succeeded. And that person was running loud. And ever since then I got great deal of resentment for her. But more than that, I had tremendous respect because this is somebody who I know throughout the years of my is unmoving when it comes to principles. And when it is that we wanted to find somebody who we think best exemplified what we stood for tonight, I couldn't think of a better person than her. So, Anna,
Good night, everyone. When I was asked to give the feature address at this tonight, my immediate reaction was incredulity. Why would anyone think I had anything important to say? Who would listen to someone who's never dabbled in politics beyond my vote every go-around at election time. What could I say that could impact any political initiative in this sphere? Why should I care to impact it in the first place? Before I go further, please allow me to introduce myself. I'm a 40-year-old mom of 4, a full-time teacher in a career I've nurtured for 21 years, and a small business owner of less than 2 years. When opportunities presented themselves for migration, I resisted, believing I could make a change in the classroom, nurturing young minds to be free thinkers and logic seekers. When successive attempts to get me to leave faltered, my relatives eventually just washed their hands and said, "You stay in that God-forsaken place." And I stayed. I stayed behind because leaving clearly meant a moving forward. But I was quite happy to raise my children in what even many of our own people term as a backwater land. But now I'm more concerned for the futures of those same children. I find myself troubled, terrified by the political directives we continue to allow ourselves to be led by. Directives which have created ethnic division, struggling families, and a less than robust economy and educational system. I'm troubled that nothing seems to be moving our people to demand better representation, which will ultimately change our fortunes, even as a great collective fortune is on the horizon. I'm troubled that we're doing the same dance every election cycle with no tangible results by the time the next one rolls around. Very true. When people ask me what I am, I tell them that I'm Guyanese, resisting the obvious answer, which is to state what my ethnic composition is. In case you're curious, I take mixed Guyanese in every form I fill up. I grew up in Charlestown, South Georgetown, raised by my paternal grandparents who instilled in me from an early age the core values of humanity, which I try to live by every day of my life. I've spent the last few years preparing students for external examinations at CAPE and CSEC, and I'm an active member of the Roman Catholic faith. Today, I am venturing into territory which is brand new to me, and which honestly, I never one day dreamt I'd be a part of. I've joked on and off to friends that one day I'd get fed up of the machinations and run for office, but that I'd probably only get one vote, which would be my own. Some encouraged me, others laughed at my naivety, and yet others sought to actively dissuade me, purely based on Guyana not being ready for anything other than what we've experienced since independence. Recently, I've wondered what could change this way of thinking, and I realized that not only did I have to seek out like-minded individuals like myself, but that we'd have to band together to effect this change we so envision for our motherland. Getting here has not been easy. Guyanese are jaded. They're also very vocal against those who they believe differ from them in ethnicity and political beliefs, and these are often crudely spouted. They have traditionally ingrained voting patterns, and breaking it has never been fully achieved to date. The words of Machiavelli come to mind here. It ought to be remembered that there is nothing more difficult to take in hand, more perilous to conduct, or more uncertain in its success than to take the lead in the introduction of a new order of things, because the innovator has for enemies all those who have done well under the old conditions and lukewarm defenders in those who may do well under the new. This coolness arises partly from fear of the opponents who have the laws on their sides, and partly from the incredulity of men who do not readily believe in new things until they've had a long experience of them. It is in this frame that I constructed this presentation. Fear of the unknown is par for the course. Rejection of unknowns is par for the course. Threats to economic capacity is cause for concern in any intended massive change. But what is not acceptable is an almost inscribed belief that a country's political will can only go in a prescribed direction year after year. Forgive me if my words do not ring of political intrigue or have all the right buzz guaranteed to move you to swirl accolades my way. I am a mere teacher. But I live with a greatness for my country and a dream of that greatness. This mere teacher wants a new paradigm in our politics, and I wanted to include our young people in creating and sustaining it. Our status quo has led us to political quagmire and a blatant loss of respect for the Constitution. The depths of chaos and uncertainty the people have to endure in times of political electioneering and gimmickry cannot be a regular thing. We court our citizens at election time and seem to listen to them and to what they want, but in reality, we've never truly put them first. There has not been any transformative shift to collectively represent the people. To effect this change, Guyana needs a resilient institutional mechanism to channel our progress, and that mechanism will only come from a committed group of competent people working together for the collective good. Our current system does not allow for this. It is time for a clean slate with a focused Guyanese citizenship initiative. This is the Guyana I envision. One that carries maximum respect for our Constitution and its laws. I believe in a Guyana that is united like our mutual love for cricket and which does not cease as soon as we drive out of the stadium parking lot. I dream of a Guyana where the political will caters for those who support and for those who disagree with them, and the same benefits are meted out to all Guyanese, no matter the divide. I believe in a Guyana where our people have equal opportunities in education and jobs, no matter their geographical location, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, or religious beliefs. I dream of a country which puts smart infrastructure in place in every region to train our national athletes, to produce cures for major diseases in our labs, and to implement STEM-based programs for further development. I believe in a Guyana which chooses competency over party paramountcy to realize goals set by national and international standards, especially in educational achievements, health initiatives, and ICT infrastructural capabilities. I believe in a Guyana that has infrastructure that caters for complex surgical achievements, as well as for students with learning disabilities. I believe in a Guyana that innovates and manufactures enough for our own people, and with more than enough to share with our neighbors. I believe in a Guyana that taps into all Guyanese skills to generate the competent personnel we will need to steer this ship. I believe in a Guyana that integrates fully all the skills needed for large-scale economic agricultural production of new and old crops. I dream of a Guyana with people willing to take chances on new faces, with the willpower and competency to effect all these dreams and beliefs I have. I dream of a Guyana where basic goods and services doesn't exhaust the Guyanese just trying to access it. I believe in a country where every family can build their home, raise their families, and put something away for a rainy day. I believe in a Guyana which does not jail its citizens for minor offenses and which has a different rule system for the rich and the poor. I dream of a Guyana where our resources are put to work for us and there are equal rights for all our citizens. This is the Guyana the manifestos have promised since independence. When do we actually make the transition to less talk and more action? Guyanese lawyer Ronald J. Daniels tells us, once we put the people first, the outcome may not always be utopian, but it would be understood and invariably accepted. Our people do not expect perfection. They expect consistently sincere consideration and honest service. I believe there are 3 things that every Guyanese can do to achieve these dreams, which I'm sure many of you share with me. Firstly, Know your rights as a citizen. Our political will has been shaped too much by those who know the laws and manipulate them for our votes using legal and constitutional jargon. Secondly, make those seeking your vote work for it. Make them work for your vote every single cycle. Your vote is a constitutionally enshrined right. Voting a specific way for only their benefit is not. That is your free will, and you must be respected for it. Lastly, remember that Guyana is a land where we all live. You might benefit from a political situation, but why must it be on the backs of other Guyanese? Do not be daunted by the enormity of the task ahead. Do it justly. You're not obligated to complete the work, but neither are you free to abandon it. Toni Morrison has the best advice for those taking up the mantle of responsibility. When you get the jobs that you've been so brilliantly trained for, just remember that your real job is that if you are free, you need to free somebody else. If you have some power, then your job is to empower somebody else. This is not just a grab bag, candy bag game. I've never courted political dreams, believing that some of us change fortunes in the trenches. In fact, no party, old or new, has ever fancied my time or energy. But I feel it is time to channel my energies to erase the division that cripples us and stymies our potential as a diverse, competent, resource-rich nation. We can no longer ignore the fact that we have never truly formed any citizenship initiative to challenge ingrained political clout, because we've always had a fractious society, which is perpetuated in part by ethnic differences and structural inequity. These are the collection of core values the Citizenship Initiative outlined earlier tonight. It is to be the model for sustained, transparent governance and accountability for a country on the cusp of economic viability in changing globalization models. These values are the ones I share with every speaker who stood before me, outlining the goals and policies of this initiative. These are intended to be the characteristics of the representative model for every Guyanese citizen, regardless of gender, economic status, political persuasion, sexual orientation, religious persuasion, or ethnicity. These are the contours of my one recurring dream over these past few months. I dream of a new Guyana. Arundhati Roy tells us that another world is not only possible, she is on her way. On a quiet day, I can hear her breathing. This is the Citizenship Initiative. This is our hope for a clean slate and the pride that comes from building a better united Guyana. My name is Rhonda Ann Lam. I am a Guyanese. I am a citizen.
And I'm a citizen.
My name is Alfonso, and I'm a citizen.
My name is Ron Johnson, and I'm a citizen.
My name is Young David, and I am a citizen.
I'm a dual citizen.
My name is Ruth Taylor, and I am a citizen.
My name is Bala Moffat, and I am a citizen.
We encourage you all, come up, introduce yourself.
It's looking a little cultish,
Anybody else want to speak?
Marika Butts, I am a citizen.
Chris Nancy, I'm a citizen.
Rajendra Bishashar, and I'm a citizen.
I'm Alex Arjun, and I'm a citizen.